Hello and welcome to this session as part of the buildingSMART International Standards Summit, Berlin 2025. Thank you for joining. My name is Andre and I will be your moderator today. This is the GS1 Standards 2 session. This session is scheduled to last 90 minutes, including time for questions at the end. The session is being recorded and will be made available in the replay section of the event as soon as possible. Before I hand over to the speakers, I would like to remind you that this is a hybrid event. For online attendees, your microphone will remain muted for the duration of the session. If you wish to make a comment or ask a question, please use the chat box in the control panel. For the attendees here in the room, please keep background noise to a minimum. And if you wish to make a comment or ask a question, please raise your hand and use a microphone. I would also like to bring to your attention that buildingSMART is committed to ensuring that participation in the development of standards is unrestricted and the process for their adoption is transparent, and standards that are developed do not favor any particular provider and are open, non-binding, and accessible to all. Please take note of our antitrust code of conduct. And with this, I would like to hand over to Gear.
Thank you. And thank you for those of you who come back after the break. And for those of you who did not come back, we know where you live. Okay, now we are going into part 2, and we will start with what we call Vestfold Hospital part 2. Inge Aarseth will follow up, and he will emphasize the importance of unique identification of BIM objects. So I think he has a strong message to the industry in general, but maybe in particular the software vendors. So Inge, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Geir. Okay. I gave a presentation of the company before the break, so I will not go into detail about that, except one issue here. It's our commitment to use buildingSMART standards. And that's very important for us because we have been among the first in Norway to implement buildingSMART standards. Actually, the Aarhus project was one of the first IFC project in Norway. And we had our regional BIM strategy in 2011. And our hospital have won 3 buildingSMART awards. And we have been an active supporter of the buildingSMART community since the beginning. And our latest strategy, that's from 2021. It's an updated one. But we also want to focus on our commitment to the GS1. And that's the reason why I'm asked to come here today to speak to you. And I thank you for the possibility to do that. We have a history where we, for several years, has used and worked with GS1 Norway in order to establish GS1 standards within the Norwegian building industry. We had both established a Esketen guide some years ago. We also had a leadership commitment decision of the top level on the Norwegian Regional Health Authority in order to use GS1 standards. We are using GLN as a standard for our locations. We want to use that throughout all the ICT system in our health authority. So if you can see the middle, the first, now the fourth dash here, large implementation. We have more than 100,000 locations which have received their GLN as an identification. We use the GLN as a social security number. Everybody here has a name, but in order to get what shall I say, proficiency and efficiency in the digital world, you need a social security number or identification which is readable. So we have put that on all our locations. It's not completed yet, but we are working with that. We also have the publications, all our different guides. They are established in GS1 Norway's web pages, and we have an ICT implementation. For 2 years ago, we had a competition, and we decided to go for a new FM system. It's called Omega 365, and we are now in the phase of implementing that. We are finished with the pilot period, and we're using GIAI, and GTN as GTN, and GLN as uh, identifiers throughout the systems. I will not go into that this part because Geir mentioned it, but there is a memorandum of understanding between the GS1 and BSI. However, we have a challenge, and that's the lack of standard implementation of GS1 properties within the IFC environment. And that's why I'm standing here. Because, as you can see up here, each software vendors, when we are going to implement GLN, we have to use a custom property set. There's no standardization within the software industry. So we have to use or define the different property sets, and we would like to see that we have less of dialects and more of standardized items. So we need a standardization how the GS1 standard should be implemented within the IFC environment. Now this is both for the normal design software, the FM systems, the BMS, building management systems, logistics, admin software, etc. And as you can see on the screen here, we also want to use the the GLN as our identification within the core business. For us, it's like an electronic patient journal. And then when we can use GLN as a common identifier throughout all the ICT systems, it's much better, much easier to get the integration. The concept, how the GS1 standard complement IFC. This figure that illustrates how we can use GS1 standard. Here you can see the product and location, where you have the GS1 GLN, you have GTN, you can also have SGTN here, and you have the maintenance object. In Norway, we use what we call TFM, which consists of location, system, and component. All the different components within our buildings have a TFM code, all items. However, we see in order to get a machine readable possibility here, we couldn't use this because it's not adapted to do that. But in order to use, or when we can use GAI, that's much better for the complete workflow. So we have GS1 QR code. You can see electronic product codes. So we have the possibility to have the both the physical labeling and RFID readable with all the different components here. So we have written that as a bonus, GS1 provide standards for machine-readable representation of these identifiers. If we go to the semantics and discuss or look at how this could be implemented, you can see here we have a drawing where we put the IFC identification on the left, and we have the GS1 at the right. And we have the IFC building, building story, IFC zone, IFC space, IFC object, and we have GLN, uh, room, product, uh, product, product, and the different items there. GS1 digital link that was described uh, previous session here. So this describe how we could implement um, GS1 standard into the BIM environment. And this is important to us because we need to have the different entities within the BIM model with an corresponding GS1 identification. We need that in order to get the, what shall I say, more efficient digitalization in our FM environment. Use cases. How are we going to use this? We have two use cases which I'm written here. You can see this is actually a drawing from our hospital, our model. The first use case is GAI, Global Individual Asset Identifier. We have shown both the GLN QR code at the room and GAI QR code at the object itself. To have several products with the same get-in, we need to separate them when we are doing maintenance. And you can do that by using SGET-in. And we have tried, but it's difficult to change the industry uh, as fast as we would like to. So we saw that we need to have another code, and we choose to go for GAI because then we could have separate items which we can use as a QR code and also as an RFID in order to implement that in a way that we could handle the maintenance on the subject level. Because we need to have, in the FM system, we need to have one identification connected to one product. That's for easy electronic identification, as I have written in the presentation here. The use case number 2, that's GLN. When I said that we are using GLN at a large scale, so we have got the information from the GS1 here that we are probably the only organization which has used GLN in the way we are doing with so many GLN. We have more than 100,000 identification of the rooms. I'm not sure how many, but it's more than that. We need to have separate identification of each one, and we use that with the GL1 system. It's like written here, it's a location social security, which is understood worldwide. And it's not all of those which we have exposed to the GS1 GLN register. It's only 3 to 5%, which is the logistical hubs, which is needed to be exposed outside. The rest of it is internal. So that is also some security issues about that. So we don't expose everything. It's only what you need to be exposed outside. It is the core of the presentation. So if there is something you should take with you, this is the page. And this is what we are challenging the software industry to implement. I'm presenting the issue here, and after me, there will come a presentation by Arthur. He's going to present how this could be done. But we recommend several new GS1 properties within the IFC environment. It's the IFC pure identity, electronic product code identity as a URI, and it's the GS1 digital link, uniform resource locator syntax as a URL. That's a general syntax which can be used both on the products and the locations. And then we have the products or the assets with GAI, the SGTN. We need both of them. And we need that the building industry start to use SGTN as one of their identification, because it would be much easier if they started already in the production and we could use it from the cradle to the grave as one unique identifier. We also would like to see location, GL1, GLN, and we express it to be the GLN13 because it could be read differently. And we also would like to see GLN as an EPC pure identity. 6 separate property fields is what we are asking for. And as you can see, we have also asked for GLN negating 13. The road ahead. Here is something what we are doing, and we need that the GLN to be the IFC to implement the GS1 standards. And the challenge is to get the software vendors in order to use those identifications. So that's my main issues, what we are working for. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Inge. One important part of GS1 new global strategy is that we put sector needs first. Everyone says that, but there we have some difference with the theory and practice. But sector needs first. So what you describe now is sector need. So now let's see then how business buildingSMART International and GS1 are working together with challenges and needs like Inge described here. So Mr. Arthur Tomacek from buildingSMART International will walk us through this session.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Okay, yes, I have my slides. Perfect. So Inge already introduced the topic quite well, but I was asked by Ildiko from GS1 to present how the collaboration looks from the buildingSMART perspective and how our solutions fit together. I will try not to go into very technical details, but it's also necessary a bit. But I have 10 minutes. I will try to be quick. But I would like to also refer to what Inge said about this GLN property, that even though GS1 clearly specified what is GLN, and it's a very common issue. You might think that even though, yeah, those are just three letters, everybody should know how to put it in the model. There are a lot of decisions to be made. And when you deal with a physical data carrier, I don't know, a barcode, everybody will understand this is a barcode, I need to scan it, it contains some information behind it. But in a digital world, we have to be more specific. We need to not only specify how is it called, but also where to where to put it in the hierarchy, how to structure it in a property set, what is the data type, whether it's a number or string. Actually, in IFC, we have even more. We have a text, label, integer, real, and so on and so forth. So when we talk about OpenBeam solutions, OpenBeam standards, there are many, but I will focus on those three solutions that I think are relevant in this context, which are IFC, that you already heard many times from previous presentations, the IDS, which is a standard for specifying information, and bSDD, which is not a standard, but a service that supports defining the terms, supports sharing data dictionaries, and referencing them in the models. On the right-hand side, you can see the GS1, some of the GS1 solutions, such as, playing automatically, okay, such as the GT, DLN, GA, AI, and SGT. So let's have a look at how it all fits together when we talk about digital product passports. So digital product passports relies on many things. Among them are the common definitions, the templates, identifiers, data carriers, and the actual information. On the right-hand side, you have solutions that support it. Those are not the only solutions that can facilitate those needs, but they are the ones that we are talking about today. And let's have a look at how they interact with each other. Starting with the bSDD data dictionary service with identifiers from GS1. So we did this demonstration together with colleagues from GS1 Norway, where we published the data dictionary of GS1 identifiers in the bSDD. It's all publicly available. I can read the slides afterwards, but in simple terms, it's just a data dictionary containing definitions of 7 identifiers, 7 properties, explaining exactly precisely how this data should be captured in a BEAM model. So it's adding this additional layer of precision on top of the GS1 standards. If we have a closer look at GI-AI identifier, the user can read that it's not just the 4 letters, but it has a definition that is used to identify individual assets. They can also read what value is expected, that it should start with 4 digits followed by up to 30 characters. They can also use it for automatic processing, which we'll mention in a moment. They can also see some examples. And very important here, they can also see the identifier that can be also placed in the models so that others can also find this definition later. Okay, next pair are identifiers and the actual IFC data. I have here example IFC model with identifiers from GS1 placed inside. So you can see that in this IFC model, when I click on one of the objects, in this case, it's an insulation, I can read the GI-AI code. I can use the digital link, which will direct me to the GS1 page containing this information about this product. I can also see the SGTIN code that Inge mentioned. I can also see the GTIN 13. In this case, it's spelled exactly how Inge suggested in the report with GTIN-113. So everybody knows precisely what value is expected there. Next pair are the templates. So bSDD contains general definitions. IFC helps to structure the data in a standardized manner. But how do we tell the contractors, or how do we agree how the data should be specified if the data is not precisely dictated by the IFC standard? And in this case, the IFC standard doesn't contain all of the identifiers such as SGT and DLN and so on. And for this, we can use data templates. And one of the solutions from OpenBeam range called IDS can help you achieve that. I have here an example IDS file. This is how you can see it, how you can view IDS in a software. I can zoom in, and it says, okay, All of the products in the model need to have GT-13 specified, and the length of the value has to be precisely 13 numbers or characters. Same for all of the other identifiers. We can give very precise instructions that can be read both by people, but also by machines, so that we can automate the checking and make sure that the data is according to the demand. Same for the GL1 13. And this is more or less human readable, but the IDS is actually stored in this version, which is, it can also be read by a human, but it's not so user-friendly. But all the data is captured there. I think it's quite intuitive. So all of the same, the same codes, identifiers, they all have a place in the IDS structure. Okay, but this is scary. This is what users actually see. They don't have to look at the code. What they see when they operate with IDS data, IDS specifications, are those lists of requirements that allow them to do automatic checks. In this case, we made this very simple model with just 3 walls and a pipe going through them. And we asked which of the elements have all of the identifiers that Inge required on the project correctly, and which don't match the requirement. In this case, you can see that, for example, the pipe has correct identifiers, but the insulation is highlighted in red because it's missing a GT-13 property. That's a very simple example. Sometimes it's more sophisticated. For example, the pipe has a GT-13, but it's not it's not captured in a correct measure because it's provided as an integer, and it was supposed to be IFC label. So we can do all of those checks, let's say, semi-automatically, thanks to open standards. Okay, few more words about the bSDD itself. It's quite a new service, even though it's already available for more than 3 years. But compared to IFC, it's a baby standard, baby solution. But right now we have around 200 organizations who publish over 300 data dictionaries. We have around 1,000 daily active users who, like, let's say, they look into the data and they use it on projects. We have around 90,000 accesses for the database a day. And something that I'm very proud of, we have already 27 integrations with tooling, because we as buildingSMART, we don't build software. We just provide, let's say, the database, the infrastructure, and it's actually software that allows people to use bSDD. And if you would like to start using it, it's fairly simple. You can go to buildingSMART website. We have instructions how to use bSDD, but I would say the main starting point is check if your software already integrates with it, because if it does, probably you already have access to the content of the bSDD. And since I have maybe 1 or 2 more minutes, Inge also asked me about how it will change when we introduce IFC5. And I will not spend much time on IFC5. It's still a work in progress project. But one thing that is crucial when we talk about GS1 identifiers is that so far, the data that was produced and put into the IFC was owned by the person who picked export. And usually it ended up with one big file combining the data coming from many manufacturers, designers, engineers, and so on. With IFC5, there will be many new many changes, but one of them it will be that we will be able to preserve the actual authorship of every single piece of information. So even though the product will be put in the model by architect, we'll be able to tell, okay, who specified that the length is 20 centimeters. We can trace back the information to the actual manufacturer, and we can also trace back the source of the definitions to, for example, GS1, and say that the DLN is not definition coming from buildingSMART, but it's a definition from another authority, which is the GS1 itself. So this way we can be more transparent about who owns the data, who produced the data, and it will bring more transparency. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arthur. Now, I will introduce Frits van der Bos from GS1 Netherlands, and he will share with us 3 user perspective of making data available for maintenance and certification. So, here we are.
Thank you. Yes, I have a challenge. I have to get some extra time for you for the next presentation, so I'm going through it quickly. Three different perspectives. And if you look at the design process of a building, you start with an idea and you go all the way to demolish the building after 30 years. I think most of you guys will be on the upper level, will be in the designing, in the creating the data files with specifications. Manufacturers, however, will be on the bottom side of the graph, where they create products that have to comply with the request of the design. We took 3 perspectives: the building owner, the installer, and the wholesaler or manufacturer. And I'm going through it quite quickly. So pay attention. The Erasmus Medical Center is a university hospital in the Netherlands, in Rotterdam, actually. 8,500 spaces, 54,000 assets, a lot of toilets, a lot of fire extinguishers to be checked every day. They use an app to allow their maintenance technicians to scan for maintainable assets and spaces and record their observations and record what they did in the spaces. I've cleaned the toilet. And they register that in an app, and you can process the data and see which are the toilets which have been used quite frequently, so you can increase the speed of checking. They've chosen GS1 barcodes to be used on their products, on their assets, locations, and service relations. Why? Because in their medical process, they already are used to do that. If you go to a hospital or this hospital, you get this bracelet with a barcode which has a GS1 service relation number. If you go to the medicine department, every medicine in the world, I would say, would have a GTIN, a batch number, a serial number, an expiry date. You scan the bracelet, you scan the medicine, and you scan the one that gives it to you. And that way, in your medical files, they can check, is this medicine prescribed for you specifically? That process they use also in their asset management. And that's why they choose GS1 barcodes. The next perspective. Renza is a wholesaler that prefabricates product kits with pumps for quick installation by their clients. So what they did, they took a heat pump, they added all these different parts to it, and then it's one component that can be installed in the house. They want not only to sell the kit, but also the information that is attached to it. They want to have easy access for their clients to operation and maintenance manuals, to IFC files, to installation instructions, and to bill of materials. And from the bill of materials to all the product information of the components that they used. So basically what you see in the upper corner is the IFC file, the 3D model. Below that is the bill of materials, and you see that the GTINs of the products are in blue. And if you click on that, you go to a data pool in the Netherlands where all product data is stored, and you can easily retract that. The blue schedule is something that we found out when we developed this project. A scanner registers the time when it does the scan. It identifies itself, so you know who is scanning. It also identified what is scanning. So I scan this asset or I scan this product. So you already have, let's say, 80% of the data elements for each maintenance log that you do or certification that you do. You just have to add the last step. What did I do? Why did I scan this product or asset or location? And that makes it really easy to have a standardized record of maintenance or certifications. And that record you can share with your client. You can update the information about the life cycle of your asset or your product. So that was a very powerful tool. And it's something that is there for years already, because if you do an RFID scan, imagine you can't see what's in the container, but it scans it 60 times per second, and it just records all 60 times all the serial numbers. And then you can calculate how many instances there are in the box. And that's what companies like Decathlon and others do when they come with your shopping basket. You put it in the scanner, and they say, "Oh, you have this amount of products." So, in order to make this happen, Renza used the QR code powered by GS1. And that our QR code contains a digital link that Shervin early on explained, but it's basically it's the domain name of the resources, the HTTPS protocol, to allow sources to whether to give you data or don't give you data. It's the GS1 object identifier, and and that's it. And the app will add or change the domain name if they want to go to a different source to still have information about the same item, the same object. So this picture allows you to capture that. The app will process the barcode, and imagine this will be the barcodes that's on every physical item in the construction world. Once we have this digital product passport, we also have the application to put a barcode on our product. And the idea of GS1 is to have one barcode. One barcode that gives you access to the digital product passport, that will give you access to stock counting, that will give you access to invoicing. All these things can be done with the same barcode. The last perspective is that of an installer. This installer wants to help their customer have a better living environment. And they want to use data and scanning to improve their services. They use sensor data. They will give access to installation manuals, to certificates, and bill of materials. And that way, they can better plan their maintenance work. They make sure that they are working on the right assets, that they have the right documentation with that they order the right spare parts. And when they ordered them and they got delivered, they can still scan them to see that the right spare parts are in the right service vehicle, don't do the right job. So no, oh, sorry, I forgot something. Or sorry, I have the wrong parts with me, and go back. Also, they created an app and this app gives them access to the sensor data on the right for you, the manuals, and the certificates. So what connects these three perspectives? Well, first, they all use GS1 identifiers for product batches, assets, locations, and service relations. Secondly, to get to the right data, they use the digital link URI. And thirdly, if we talk about maintenance, stock counting, or certification logs, you use the GS1 ECIS standard, which is the standard that records the time, the when, where, why, and what have I scanned process. A call for the buildingSMART community enable the connection between the BIM model, which is this set of requirements, and the actual product that fulfills those requirements. Well, Arthur already gave way forward for there. Proof that scanning of GS1 identifiers can improve quality and efficiency. Still building the business cases with companies around here that already experienced that, but we want to have more companies involved. Prove that the digital link can bring you to the right information, and consider the following. With the new EU regulation around digital passports, we will require that manufacturers will physically put a barcode on each product, start preparing, and that barcode could give access to the TPP. But if you're a mechanic or a maintenance engineer and you want to see the installation information, you just want to have a scan and click on that part, and not the total set of information that is required by the EU legislation. So you want to go through it, and that is enabled by this digital link. Thank you very much.
Can I have a clicker? Okay, thank you very much, Fritz. Okay, now we are going into an online session. Some of you have probably heard about manufacturing.
Okay, so well, firstly, my apologies for not being there in person. I'm afraid we're in the midst of submitting a Horizon submission today, but that and other issues. But anyway, I'm sure you're having a fantastic session. I was invited to speak on the Manufacturing Information Hub. Before I forget, there are a couple of people that are there with you over the course of the couple of days at buildingSMART. Thierry Basset, for example, from CK is the technical working group lead for this. Magdalena as well is heavily involved. It's on our executive steering group, and obviously GS1 well aware as well as others. So please talk to them over coffee. But anyway, this is an initiative. It's an idea, a concept I had about 6 or 7 years ago. We've been finally waiting for the right level of market pull and push to enable this to happen. That has come mostly via the European Commission's mandation of digital product passports, which is oh, hang on. Sorry, should I pause? This is all fine. Yeah, I'll just hang on a second with the clicking, and I'll tell you when to click through. So we were waiting for that pull, and that market pull came from the Commission. So we've had there's an awful lot going on for construction product manufacturers. We've had, for example, the Grenfell Tower fire here in the UK has driven a lot of new legislation and initiatives, verification processes for manufacturers' product information, for example. We've also had the new construction product regulation. In the past, in 2016, 2017, we also had a drive for 3D CAD, data-rich CAD objects, as you're all aware. which is a huge expense for the construction product industry. And many of those have felt as though their fingers were burnt as a result of people stopping or reducing their use of those portals, those platforms, because quite simply manufacturers weren't updating their objects. I can understand that. We had 6,400 individual product objects, CAD objects. Very difficult to keep all those updated as data changes. We've seen obviously initiatives on different international European standards on data, 23386, 87. We've seen the rise of ETIM, as well as obviously IFC schemas developing to 4.0 and now on to 5. We also had lots of drivers for circular economy, platforms like One-Click LCA as an example. That's a platform where anyone can upload manufacturer's product information, and then no one informs the manufacturer, and no one makes sure that information is accurate, correct, and yet or updated, and yet it's seen as gospel by architects and engineers that are utilising that information. Obviously, seeing digital product passport adoption coming in, part of which we're obviously aware we'll have a digital object identifier, most likely, as you all know in the room, GS1 or GTIN. So you can click forward now, Rachel. So there's an awful lot going on. And it's a lot for manufacturers to understand. Could you click?
I'll try my best to cover Steven's slides. We probably need to. Okay. It's not green. So basically, recently GS1 UK has started to collaborate with the NBS. Could you please raise your hand if you have heard NBS national building specifications, or if you are using in your projects? Amazing. So they are behind the unit class as well. So NBS developed a unit class as well. So we have started to collaborate with MBS recently. And what I mean, so MBS source, if I can go to the next slide. There you go. So MBS is also 51 years old as well, very similar to the GS1 UK. So they established in 1973 and launched the National Building Specification. That's what NBS stands for. So we have been in touch with MBS for at least 2 years to start these collaborations. And what I mean by collaborations, they have one tool is called MBS Source. So within the NBS Source, architects are doing the specifications. So when you are doing the design within the MBS Source, you have access to the product catalogs and all the product from about 1,000 manufacturers. And when you want to do the specification, you drag and drop the models from the NBS source into your Revit models or any other authoring tools that you are using. So by doing that, one of the attribute is that it's now being captured on the NBS source is the GTIN for that particular product. So what it means that architects basically without knowing are embedding GS1 standard into their Revit model, and that unique ID can be used later on by the procurement team or the contractors to validate if this is the right product or if they make changes to the design during the, for the as-built model, they can just replace the GTIN from the MBS store or within the Revit model. So what they notice, or how the collaboration started, they notice that some of the manufacturers start to capture the GTINs on the description of their products on the MBS source. And that was when we started to collaborate and told them that this is actually help, the designers to find what the product that they want to put in the model as well. So you can see, this is one example, they used to capture it in just the features or in the descriptions, but now there is a specific field within the NBS source where they can capture GTIN. So architects can now just type the GTIN in the search and find that product. But what we are trying now is to take it one step ahead and make it machine readable and let the AI to find the product. So this is the this is the attribute that I mentioned. It's now within the MBS source where manufacturer can capture the GTIN or EAN. But what we are now working on, what we have tried that, it's also machine readable and AI readable as well. So for example, in the ChatGPT as an example, if you read the prompt, we just put the unique ID in the ChatGPT and said, just find the information. And because information on the MBS source are publicly available, ChatGPT or any AI can retrieve the information based on that unique ID and list all the informations. And you can see it put, for example, MBS source at the source of the data. So by having the structured data and link using GS1 Standard as a digital key, you can retrieve trusted information from different sources, mainly from the MBS source, if your product is on the MBS source and has a unique ID. So this is a collaboration that we are exploring more and more. We are trying to connect that to the, for example, building logbook, connected to the procurement system. But this is a start of the very interesting journey between the NBS and GS1 UK or GS1 in general. Um, Again, I'm very sorry for the technical issues. I know Esteban was probably the best person to present this, and he did a great job last week at the NBS Construction Leaders Summit, but I tried my best to cover these 3 slides. Again, sorry for that. Now I pass it to Rachel to cover one of the case studies we recently did with the Electrical Distribution Association, EDA.
Thanks. Perfect, thank you. Hey, a bit of calm. There is no technical problems, hopefully, so this is good. Thank you, Shervin. Yes, I have been in contact with Stephen, and he said that that was a good representation, so thank you. Obviously not as good as a live demo, so there is an opportunity to do that. But following on from what Vivi's talked about and really leading into a little bit of what Shervin's just touched about, we wanted just to kind of show you this kind of demonstration around what we've done in terms of products data management and what an organisation association has done in the UK, which is EDA. So, apologies. So the EDA is the Electrical Distributors Association, and they represent the electrical technical product market in the UK. And we've been working with them since 2022. So they have 260 membership and really focusing on the national chains and branch management for the electrical products. And they have 127 affiliates and 114 of those manufacturers, 11 are solution providers, and 2 are service providers. So what's the challenges around, and why did they look at this to kind of understand what do they need to do? So the challenges that the UK kind of face is that we were late to the party in terms of how do we identify products. And we, as I already mentioned earlier on in the morning session, obviously we know construction and the electrical sector is obviously complex and fragmented, broad range of stakeholders. They don't have one specific, unique way of identifying products. So the EDA created their own data pool to be able to do that, which holds high data quality management. So they wanted to tackle that problem, the data issue, and they introduced an international standard to be able to do that, and focused on GS1 standards by using the GTIN to be able to accurately identify products and enable to map that across their data pool. And it just allows manufacturers the ability to put that data within their system directly. Because I think, as already touched on a couple of the presentations earlier on, it should be the manufacturers that are managing and looking after those product information, because they're the ones creating those products. There is that significant problem around obviously ensuring that this is being used within the e-commerce platforms. And this is one of the reasons why it's been so successful with eData. The benefits, and what have they done, and how did that work? It's been about education. So many of the manufacturers were using GS1 standards because they were potentially just using GS1 standards to be able to sell their products. But the benefits of that is then been explained to them what they've seen within using this data pool itself. So improved data quality, obviously seamless data integration, and they've just looked at obviously why they needed to use a unique identification key and having that standards, which streamline their operations, including, reducing manual data entry and minimizing errors within systems. So that data pool now is currently housing 95% of GTINs to be able to identify their products. They want to make sure it's at 100%, and already driving that through for the UK market. And the main key message here is that this is just one in many data pool areas that have seen the adoption. The EDA also are part of ETIM in the UK, UK and Ireland. And they're one half of that. They support that classification key. So we have a full case study really around understanding the benefits, how that's included, what do we do, how's that worked, but also what other areas of industry have adopted it and why. So I would encourage you just to read that rather than me going into all that detail. I'm conscious of time, so I've kind of flicked through quite a lot of this work. Hopefully you've got the kind of key messages from the slides, because I want to give a good opportunity to our Irish colleagues to go through their presentation. So I will hand over to Dan McCormick.
Appreciate that. So, as Rachel just said, I'm Irish. So for those of you who can't understand me, you can leave the room now, okay, right? So basically, I have a construction background. I also worked in high-end engineering. So what I'm going to be showing you is all about how we can actually marry what you've heard this morning with what we do in construction, but based on the experience in engineering, in retail, in logistics. Because we're no different. But talk to the people in the industry, as Lars knows, they don't want to change. And the reason they don't want to change is a very simple statement. As long as clients continue to pay for waste, waste will continue. The problem is, I'm going to show you now is that we're getting to a point where cost to value is becoming prohibitive. And therefore, projects like HS2 in the UK have been cancelled because of cost to value. Therefore, like any other industry, and I've worked in industries, we have to find a better way, a smarter way of achieving the same end game, but using technology. And the best technology you can use from a global operability and everything else is the GS1 standard. Why? Because you've heard a lot about BEM. My focus, and everybody in this room's focus, should be on the I in BEM, the information. Because that's what's required if we want a sustainable future, if you want to build smarter, if you want to build cheaper, and build faster. So with that, I'll go through the presentation. Okay, so now that I can see it on screen here, as you can see on the left-hand side, this is not unique. It's the UN is involved in this as well. So I'll speed up now. So I've been told I've got 9 minutes from the French lady over there. Okay, so importance of standards, data exchange, and error reduction. Critically important. As my good friend Fritz said earlier, you put in QR codes to avoid issues. Why? Because you provide the information at the work phase. That's where the information is required. Do it once, do it right, and don't go back the second time, because that's where the cost lies. Compliance and transparency, absolutely required. As you saw on the previous slide, the EU is driving this through checkers, checking checkers, checking checkers. For those of you in the room who have experience in construction, that does not work. So what we have got to do is get smarter. We're not alone. As you can see on this chart, the world is actually looking at various situations. The key problem, what I'm just showing you on the slide there, is the amount of administration that's required to actually go and deliver on all those regulations. It's hard enough to deliver buildings, but if you've got to fill a whole lot of forms, a whole lot of procedures to follow, then the buildings cost more. Why? Because the people who should be supervising the work are stuck inside offices, filling out PDFs and doing everything else. This is what we have to eliminate. We have to repeat what happens in a supermarket. And furthermore, we've got the footprint reporting coming in 2027. By 2030, targets will be set. So therefore, architects, engineers, quantity surveyors, and everybody else will have to work to a cap. So how do we do this? Central role of information. As I said, the I in BIM. GS1 standards. But you see the word there in green? Trust. Trust. It's critically important. And why? Because of transparency, responsibility, user focus, sustainability, and technology. TRUST. Why is trust important? Because everyone in this room goes on occasion to a supermarket. You walk around, you take stuff off the shelf, you walk to the EPOS, and the person behind the counter scans. She smiles at you, she winks at you, whatever, and you pull out your wallet. And you pay. Why? Because you trust the system. But what is that system based on? It's based on GS1 standards and 1D barcodes. In the future, in 2027, they will be 2D barcodes. And is the construction organization and the architectural and the engineering going to be behind the curve or ahead of the curve? Hopefully ahead of the curve, because this is what's important. So as you can see on the left, this is what I was talking about earlier. Hands up, anybody who thinks they're on the left-hand side of that picture, on the left-hand side of that picture. Nobody's putting their hand up. Wow. So is everybody on the right-hand side where they can just scan a rebar cage? One of these. Unfortunately, Sean Dennison here with a model of a rebar cage. You've all seen this. And for those of you who don't know, I hope there's very few in the room, this provides tensile strength to concrete, while concrete provides compression strength. The two of them married together provide a robust structure. This building is held up by structures, by rebar and concrete. Concrete alone won't hold up this building. I hope the rebar is right. But for everyone in this room, do you know the rebar is right? You know where this rebar came from? When you walk into a supermarket, you use F-trace to trace meat. You can trace it right back to the cow. But can you trace this back to the mill where this was produced? Is there any contaminants in the steel that was used in this building? You won't find out until it falls down. Then it's too late. So seamless data exchange, improved collaboration, and enhanced project transparency. You've all heard this all day today, but I'm now going to show you the practical application. In where? Concrete. Why? As you can see here, concrete is 8%. Transportation is only 29%. Electricity is only 28%. And commercial residential is only 12%. Concrete is important. And why is concrete important? That's the reasons I'm going to show you now. On the top, you have the client. You have anybody here from facilities? Nobody here from facilities. They're the people who have to manage the mistakes of the designers and the contractors. 80% of the total cost of ownership, in fact, in some industries, 85% of the total cost of ownership is in the operational side. But the decisions made in that 15 to 10% area actually impact on the operational of that building. And what do these people who operate those buildings need? They need the eye in them. And how do they get access to it? Through QR codes. As you can see there in this diagram, all these actors, and there's 28 of them as I click through, get the information from the QR code that was originally put on the rebar cage. Why? Because that has to be tracked all the way through. Because if that's not fabricated properly, then the buildings fall down. That's not acceptable. So everything on that screen is actually tracked all the way through. And why? In that whole scenario of 28 people, not one piece of paper is used. Not one. Because why? Just like in the supermarket that I showed you earlier, they all click on a unique identifier, which gives them access to the global web where the information is stored. And this is all possible through the digital link resolver. These are the cards that are on the table over there. As you leave, you can actually experiment with this yourself. So finally then, health and safety is taken care of. As you can see there with the PSDP, the PSCS, and the HNS manager. They all get the information all the way through. And then 60 to 100 years later, we all talk about circularity. That's rebuilt. Why? Because the person who's coming to demolish the building knows if it's worth its while to actually go and extract the steel. Because why? Because they have the eye in them. They have the information. Again, quite necessary. So these are the cards you can take away with yourself. So as you can see, I only picked 4 of the 28. Now some people might say I should have picked 2 ladies on this and 2 gentlemen, but I got it wrong. Okay. And this is my wife telling me that. So step 1, pick a different actor to the person builds on. So each one of these actors, scan those. I'll go back for anybody who wants to scan on their phone. Just pick an actor. And if 4 people pick a different actor, then when they scan this QR code on the right-hand side, hopefully now I've crossed my fingers so my boss won't kill me, you should see a totally different experience. And that's the power of using digital link. Because if you only put one QR code and make it a single source of information, then the person who scans it has got a huge amount of information to go through to find a piece of information that they want. Using smart technologies, we can do this. Now, for anybody here in the manufacturing side of the business, what do you do? All right, so for those in the manufacturing business, you have a big problem. In Sika, I think I've got that pronunciation right, have I? If somebody uses a chemical that you have and looks at ChatGPT and finds a very convincing answer how to use that Sika product, and they go and use it, and it causes a problem, their answer is, I use ChatGPT. But ChatGPT suffers from the phenomenon that I grew up with, and I'm probably the oldest person in the room here, is rubbish in, rubbish out. So therefore, it's incumbent on the manufacturing industry, particularly in the construction and mechanical electrical side, to put tamper-proof QR codes on their product using the digital link resolver capability. Why? Because then anybody who scans that product, and any of those 27 players as I showed you earlier, they get a verified source of truth that they need to do the job right. And with chemicals, that's extremely important. Would you agree or disagree? Thank you. I got somebody agree with me. That's good. So what are you going to do with this? So this is for those of you who didn't use your scanners there. This is what each one of them gets. All these 4 actors scan the same QR code with the piece of software. We don't sell software in GS1, unfortunately. We just provide standards. But if you're using Procore, if you're using Autodesk Construction Cloud, if you're using Dalux, if you're using any of these products, all they have to do instead of waking up in the morning and think of a number, use the GS1 standard. And then the profile on their phone, when they originally set up the app on their phone, says, I am an architect. And then every time they scan a QR code to get the architecture, or in this case, the resident engineer's profile. It's as simple as that. Horses for courses, if you don't mind. That's an Irish saying. I'm not sure if it's used all over Europe, but horses for courses. And then as you can see here, then we have this. Now, I mentioned earlier about F-Trace. What you have on the right-hand side is a solution called CARS. You can actually trace back the rebar right back to the mill. And take it one step further, you can take it right back to where the raw material used in that mill came from, in case there's any contamination. For those of you my age, asbestos was generally used when I grew up. Now asbestos is banned. The materials that you use today may in the future have a problem. How do you track and trace where that material was used and where it can be delivered? Go and talk to Lars, because what Lars is doing is trying to provide that information. Is a single source of truth, but the access to that is provided by GS1. That's the difference. We are in the age of AI. And with the age of AI, digital workflows simplification is required, accurate product data access, improved project outcome. Conscious of the time, I'll just go into this. The slide on the right-hand side of the screen wasn't produced by me. It was produced by Oracle, one of the largest corporations in the world. Why? Because they see that they have the processing capability, but they're missing the I. Everybody in this room can provide the I. As you can see, they drew this, I didn't. And if they're catching on to this, why aren't we catching on to it? And as you can see here, AConX is used, and you can see here from the top of the left there, the architect design using bSDD and IDEA. As you saw earlier with Tomczak, that this is important. And then Oracle AConX, which some of you are familiar with, and Oracle Primavera. Anybody here got a Rolls Royce? Nobody got a Rolls Royce? What the hell do you do? Okay, so AConX and Oracle Primavera are the Rolls Royce software products used in all capital projects. They're used in China, they're used in Japan, I worked. They're used all over the world if you've got a big project to do. Why? Because they're Rolls Royce products. And Lars will tell you he's got the Rolls Royce product in his product. We'll see. Okay, so carbon footprint reporting is going to happen. I'm nearly finished. BIM, BAM, boom. BIM, building information modeling, building assembly modeling, building owner operating model. Sorry, I went too fast there. Essentially, BIM, BAM, boom is what we need. But if you want to get to carbon, I'm back to Sika again, you need to be able to break out, well, where is that product being used? Therefore, you have to use bSDD and IDS standards to find out where the materials were used and what's their carbon footprint. Therefore, we have to do the transition between design objects using BIM models and bills of materials. Many years ago, I was in Frankfurt Airport, and I used to work for a company, and we were talking about bills of materials. Little did I know that I was being listened to talking about BOM, and before I knew it, I put my head up, and there was guys around me with machine guns telling me to stand up and put my hands over my head. Fact, right? So be careful of the BOM. Okay, bSDD, and I was Irish at the time as well. So bSDD and IDS host to standardize. So EcoWise, this company, the show that can be done, and I'm nearly finished. EcoWise is a partner of the UK colleagues. Thanks, Rachel. Thanks, Shervin. And they came to me and says, we have a great product. How we use it. For the whole lot of this conversation I've talked about the information. For those of you who go on the tube train and go through the gate with your pass, with your Oyster card, or with your credit card. No, Oyster card or in case of Dublin, for those of you who have been in Dublin. Don't go to Escalade because you won't put your hands up again. So you use the Leap card. If you scan in, it charges you €750. If you don't scan out at your destination, where I live in Port Marnock, you still pay the €750. But if you scan out, you get a credit back. This is what we do in construction. We go to all that trouble of scanning in. We pay the full price because we don't scan out. What do I mean by scan out? We do not create digital building logbooks. If anybody here sells a second-hand car, hopefully some of you did, to a private dealer, or buy a second-hand car from a private dealer, the first thing you'll do is look for the maintenance log. Yes or no? So everything we do in this room should actually end up with a digital building logbook. And fair dues to EcoWise, and thanks to my UK colleagues, Rachel, I've returned the favor. They're doing this. And you can see here, just like Lars has talked on numerous occasions about digitally signed. And with what we do in GS1, not alone can we chase products, we can actually chase this. So to finish, so for any of you who want a card, I've got to get rid of them because I'm not bringing them back to Ireland with me. So just get them off the table here and play around with it. But as I said earlier, it is about the I in them. And it's about giving people in the field access to the piece of information that they need to make a difference. And the very final statement is, every human interaction that changes the state or status of a core maintainable asset should be tracked in a fully auditable way for the future of this industry that we're all proud to be in. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan, for inspiring ending of a long day. So it's me standing in front of you and the lunch break. Just give me some few seconds. I hope you have some key takeaways from this program. And let me share some of my key takeaways. Well, the construction is now a strategic sector for GS1 on a global scale. And we have a seat at the management board. And the Center of Excellence Construction is growing globally. GS1 and buildingSMART International, we are working every day with standards that enable interoperability and traceability for the whole industry. Today, you have seen many real-world use cases which from different markets, companies, product categories, and also from different stages throughout the value chain. We are moving forward, but still too slow. But we need to break down the silos between the different actors in the value chain. Because that is necessary for improving the efficiency, reducing the work on site, and also to meet the new regulations coming in. So finally, I will say thank you for everyone in this room, for those who are participating online. Sorry for the technical issues we had during this, but the session is being recorded, so we have to look through it once more, or maybe several times. So thank you, everyone. And if you need to get in contact with buildingSMART or GS1, you can see GS1's QR code up there. Reach out to us, and we are here to help you to make bigger changes for the construction industry on a global scale. Thank you.